knocked down and knocked up on the next.
Nerd North!
Welcome back, Nerd North, and today we are talking the end of Moon Knight Episode 4 and what it means for the further implications of the show going further. And to get this out of the way,
Layla's pregnant.
But you gotta stick around to find out that part of the show. But more on that later in the video. So Moon Knight 4 was your basic Indiana Jones episodes. We had treasures, we had maps, we had creepy crawlies in the pyramid.
But they're better than the creepy crawlies you can get if you date the wrong person in Oshawa.
But it's the end of episode 4 that has everybody asking just what is going on and is any of this real at all? So let Papa North cut through all the red tape you're hearing online and tell you what's really going on. By the end of episode 4, we have Stephen Grant finding the stone statue of Ahmed in Alexander the Great's tomb
because dead gods make interesting bedfellows.
But his alter ego, Mark Spector, is then confronted by Alec Baldwin.
I mean Arthur Harrow. Sorry, I gave it my best shot. But then again, so did Alec.
We then have Stephen Grant, Mark Spector, shot by Arthur Harrow, where he falls into the waters of the tomb and begins to sink as he's dying. But where he awakens next is certainly stranger than reality.
Like that time I woke up in the dumpster behind Denny's.
Then find Mark Spector wake up in an insane asylum,
where I find most of my dates,
where he finds people we have already seen in the show. The old man that's killed by Arthur Harrow, Layla, and even his boss.
2 out of 3 I would.
And then trying to escape the asylum is picked up by 2 of the orderlies, which happen to be the 2 police that showed up in episode 2 to his flat.
Well, Harrow cronies, but you know what I mean.
They then take Mark Spector to the administrator's office, and who does it turn out to be?
Arthur Harrow.
And after Mark Spector is done with the interrogation type questions that Harrow asks him, he promptly tries to escape the asylum.
Kinda like Coyote Ugly with less ugly.
And with a little help from his friend Stephen Grant, the 2 make a great run for it before they are stopped by a hippo goddess at the exit.
If I only had $1 for every time a hippo tried to stop me from leaving their place.
And although a lot of the fandom are comparing this to Jeff Lemire's Asylum run and are thinking now this whole show is happening all in Mark Spector's head, Papa North is going to tell you why they got it all wrong.
It's kinda like believing Joe Biden got 81 million votes.
And there are even some YouTubers that believe Spector and Grant are on the ship of Anubis.
Not the ship of cannabis. That would be much more fun than the series has been.
Anubis is pretty much our version of the Grim Reaper. He is the Lord of the Dead, and he is the one who will decide if you are going to see Osiris or spend the rest of your time in Hades. And on this journey, you take his ship, the ship of Anubis, until you are at your final resting place.
Maybe the same jackal that's been chasing him this whole series.
Instead, Papa North believes this is just artistic merit and just an allegory for the world of purgatory, the world between worlds, where you're not quite dead and you're not quite alive.
His conscience is just going through all of his life decisions,
wrapping it up in a nice asylum setting.
It's classic film writing. I've seen it a million times. Because it works. But you told me Layla's pregnant!
That's right, Papa North promised you that Layla was actually pregnant. And I'll tell you right now, Papa North knows one thing.
Andrew, you are not the father.
Whew! That was a close call. Even though I would've.
So you must be asking, Papa North, how do you know that Layla is pregnant? And this is what brings in our hippo goddess.
Some would call her a hippopotamus, which is much better than a sippopotamus.
So with a little research, we find out that our hippopotamus is actually the goddess Tauret, the goddess of purifying water and the goddess of fertility, aka Lady of the Horizon, Lady of the Birth Hex.
Interesting. Go on.
I've seen this a million times before in other horror flicks. How many times does a big bad want to resurrect a god, and the only way to do it is through an unborn child or sacrificing of a female person?
Writes itself.
We already saw in this episode both Stephen Grant and Layla found an altar where sacrifices have been made, and it had all sorts of fresh blood bits and pieces on it.
Fresh blood means active sacrifices.
And what better way to raise the stakes and help Stephen Grant escape the asylum than to find out the person he loves is pregnant with his child.
Stay dead, Stephen. It's much cheaper.
And possibly in the next episode being confronted by the third personality, Jake Lockley.
Spoiler warning.
What we will see happen is Stephen Grant and Mark Spector having to work together to defeat him and come back from the dead and break free of the asylum,
Allowing them to access the power of the Moon Knight.
which creates a great trifactor. Layla is clearly in love with the personality of Stephen Grant. While Stephen Grant cannot control the powers of the Moon Knight properly, Mark Spector can.
And leave Jake Lockley controlling the powers of the underworld, which is a much better deal because Kate Beckinsale is there.
Now, I do think once this transpires, Arthur Harrow will be forced to try and resurrect Alexander the Great and bring Jake Lockley back.
But that's a debate for another day.
And when Mark Spector comes back to life, we will see him rise from the water, having his sins washed away and being birthed anew, just like so many other movies we have seen in the past.
Like the Batman? I said movies, not dog vomit.
So Layla's pregnant, and all three personalities will have to coexist as one to make things work. But hey, with a show as weird as this one, anything can happen. So tell me what you think. Leave a comment below if you like this theory or if you got one better. Don't forget to leave a like, because the more likes and comments you leave gives me a chance to make more great nerdy content for subscribers like you. And a big shout out to the Rezonator for supplying some great music for today's episode.
Links in the description below.
Follow me at Nerd North Drew.
And you've been watching this video, so hit the subscribe button. We're almost at 50 subs, and at 50, I'll be doing live streams and giveaways.
And until next time,
Nerd North!